Many of the students has one simple confusion, like what do we exactly mean by any language being platform dependent and platform independent? We call Java as a platform independent, but why C++ is not platform independent? Because even if we are running one code in one of our system and if we are sharing that code in some other system, so it is running. So how, what we do mean by it is platform dependent and Java is platform independent? So let me just try to explain you what exactly we mean by this. So before moving about what do you exactly mean by platform dependent and platform independent, let's cover how exactly code execution take place. So first, let's take the case of C or C++. Now, here we are ready with our source file. Now, as soon as we try to run our source file, preprocessor comes into an action whose role is to process the header files, is to process the line of code with hash, right? So its role is to process all the headers file present in the source file. Now, as soon as this is processed, a new temporary file is generated who is having the entire code without the header file. Now the role of compiler will be to compile this temporary file who is having the actual code present into it and convert it into a machine code, which is also known as object file. Now the extension of object file is .o. Now as soon as we are ready with our object file, it is transferred to the next stage where we are having linker. Now the task of linker is to link a library file along with its object file and then convert it into an executable file. Now what we do exactly have in library file is that, like in case of C or C++, we use cin, cout, scanf, printf. So these are basically the library file which are the keywords which are declared in the library files which we are using in our actual source file. So this is what into the library file. So the linker will link both object file and library file and then it will convert it into an executable file, which is our actual program or actual our software. So now let's cover this topic, like how C or C++ is platform independent. So before moving ahead, let's consider a scenario where we are having four different hardware or four different computers with each having different OS. Let's say that this is having Windows, this is having Linux, this is having Mac, and we have created our source file on the Windows system. Now, to run software, we need hardware as well as OS. So this is our hardware and OS in this case is Windows. So to run any software, we need both hardware as well as OS. And this hardware and OS term together is known as platform in case of C and C++. It may differ in some other language, but in case of C and C++, what do we mean by platform is hardware along with the OS present over it. Now, when the compiler is converting the source code, it converts the source code into such a way that it is only understandable by a particular OS language. So, if in this case the compiler is converting the source file for Windows OS, so it is going to convert it into a such way that it will be only understandable by Windows OS. If we try to take this file and then if we try to run it on Linux OS, so it won't work there. Why? The simple reason here is that the compiler which has converted the source code has converted into a such a way that it will be only understood by that particular OS. So for this particular OS, then we will be needing a different compiler which will then compile it for the Linux case. So thus we come to a an conclusion that C and C++ is platform dependent. It needs OS as well as hardware for its execution. And one source code executed on one OS can't be directly executed on some different OS. Now let's consider how things work in case of Java. In case of Java, our source file is compiled by our compiler into a machine language, but the catch here is that it is not converted into such a way that it is understandable by any OS. No, this is converted into a bytecode and its extension is .class. So if in our Java file we are having 100 of classes, so 100 of .class extension is going to be formed. and this bytecode which is formed is Java's own designed binary code which is not understandable by any OS and is not built for any specific operating system. Now, so if it is not built for any specific operating system, so how we will run it on some software? Because we know to run any program we need a hardware as well as operating system. So the answer why Java is platform independent lies in this question itself. So to run any Java code as it won't be understandable operating system, we need something which can convert it into such a code which can be directly understandable by our operating system. Okay, so JVM comes into picture, which is our Java virtual machine. So what Java virtual machine is that? Now, if we talk about Java virtual machine, it is not like a generic thing. It is different for different OS. It is not common for all of the OS. For Linux, it will be different. For Windows, it will be different. For Mac, it will be different. Now, what does JVM does is that it reads the bytecode and translate it to OS understandable code, and it does it with the help of JIT, which is known as just-in-time compiler, which is present inside the JVM, and its task is to read line by line bytecode and then convert it and then give it to an OS in such a way that it can be understandable by OS and then it executes. So line by line it converts and then it passes to OS and thus execution take place. So thus we come to a conclusion that the Java code is not platform dependent, it is not operating system dependent, because the bytecode which is getting created, which is getting generated, is not understandable by OS. Thus we come to an conclusion that okay, Java is a platform independent, it is not dependent on any kind of operating system to run, whereas we talk in case of C and C++, we only have hardware and operating system and it is operating system, whereas in case of Java we have hardware or operating system as well as JVM. So these three terms together is known as platform in case of Java, while in case of C and C++ it's only operating system and hardware. I hope I'm able to deliver what I meant to. So if you have any doubt, you can mention it in the comment section. Thanks for watching.